Thank you for joining us here on Health Professional Radio. Once again, I'm your host, Neil Howard, and going to be having a conversation with Mr. Charlie Kimball. Now, Charlie's an Indy Car driver, and he's going to talk with us today, not only about Indy cars, but managing his type 1 diabetes with a continuous glucose monitor. Welcome to the program, Charlie Kimball. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Neil.
Indy cars, exciting, fast, dangerous. That's what you do, yeah?
It is. I started in go-karts. I grew up watching racing. My dad's an engineer and designed cars. But I started racing go-karts at the age of 9, got into cars when I got my driver's license at 16. Kind of never looked back and climbed the ladder towards the major leagues of IndyCar racing. And 2020 will be my 10th season in IndyCar and attempting to qualify for my 10th Indianapolis 500.
Man, I tell you, that's got to be exciting, stressful. What about the danger?
The safety in Indy cars has come so far in even in the past 5 or 10 years since I've been involved. I'm one of 2 drivers on the Indy Car Safety Committee, and listening to the different safety developments, not just in the cars and the safety equipment we wear in the cockpit, it's incredible. And I think one of the unique things about my Indy car and additional safety equipment that's involved there, because as you mentioned, I have type 1 diabetes. I'm the first licensed driver with diabetes to ever race in the Indy 500. And my Indy car is different than all the other drivers because my body's different. I wear a continuous glucose monitor. So I have a sensor on my body and it transmits to a display. And that display actually plugs into the car's data system. Wow. So on my steering wheel, on my electronic dash, I have speed, lap time, oil pressure, blood sugar, water temperature, gear, my car, and my body data right there together.
Now, you've raced in Europe as well.
Right. After I graduated high school, I got accepted to university and deferred entry to go pursue my racing career in Europe. And racing in Europe, I think for my parents was a bit of a litmus test to see if I really loved racing and I was going to be good at it, or if it was something I was just enjoying doing as kind of a hobby in high school. So after a couple of years in Europe, I was doing really well and sort of proven not only to myself, but my supporters that I was good enough to make it to the big leagues. Yeah. And then in 2007, I got that curveball thrown at me and, if you'll pardon the pun, hit that speed bump of getting diagnosed with diabetes.
The diagnosis, did that gradually slow you down, or did you have to absolutely stop as far as your racing career and take a hiatus and then come back sometime later, or were you able to smoothly transition? It had to be a hard pill to swallow.
It was very shocking. I'll be honest. It was extremely surprising. I have no immediate family history of type 1 diabetes. And so I really had to educate myself about what it was and what it meant and if I'd ever get back in a race car. I remember asking the endocrinologist on the day I was diagnosed if I'd ever race again. And it seemed like the whole world slowed down. Everything kind of hit pause until I got that answer. And he said, you may have to change how you go about it, but it shouldn't get in the way of you living your dream of driving race cars. So I took a few months off. I was diagnosed in October, and the race season runs similar to a traditional baseball season, sort of March to September, October time. So getting diagnosed in October meant that I had that winter to work with my doctor and my diabetes educator, my nutritionist, my trainer, and figure out how to get healthy, how to manage my diabetes as an athlete and as a racing driver and as a regular person, and put all those pieces together to get back in the race car about 6 months later.
Wow. Now, as an athlete, there are other athletes that with type 1 diabetes. Is the physical stress of driving that car for as long as you do and as often as you do, is it comparable to other athletics in how your insulin is administered or dosed?
I think the physical exertion of driving an Indy car is similar to other professional athletics. My average heart rate, because of the adrenaline and because an Indy car doesn't have power steering and doesn't have power brakes. So trying to hold on to a 1,600 pound car with 800 horsepower at over 200 miles an hour for 500 miles, 3.5 hours, my average heart rate is in the 150s to 170s. So I burn nearly 2,000 calories during the course of a race. And so that does change how I prepare, because I know that during a race, I'm going to be burning all those calories. So just like the mechanics make sure that they're preparing the race car, they're putting oil in it, making sure all the nuts and bolts are tight, fueling it, checking tire pressure. I'm fueling my body, making sure that I'm getting the right nutrition, the carbohydrate. It's all weighed and measured. Just like they measure the amount of oil that goes into the race car, I weigh and measure the amount of carbohydrates, the amount of protein, the amount of fat, the amount of hydration, the amount of water I drink before I get in the cockpit, so that I know that I've prepared my body to go compete, as well as the mechanics have prepared the car to go compete as well.
Let's talk about your work with Novo Nordisk.
Yeah, the Race with Insulin program, it's a great partnership with Novo Nordisk that we've developed over the last, quite a few years now. And we've been able to reach out to the diabetes community. Again, if you'll pardon the pun, it's driven by me as the first licensed driver with diabetes to race in the Indy 500. So there's an on-track component, but there's also a lot of community work where I get the opportunity to share my story to other people with diabetes, to parents, and encourage them and empower patients and empower families to live their dreams, to chase their passion, while overcoming that challenge of diabetes. And it's also an opportunity for me to tell my story to healthcare practitioners and healthcare professionals so that they have an anecdote to talk to their, if it's newly diagnosed patients, or if it's patients that are struggling with their care, they have a story about somebody who does something, lives life in the fast lane, if you like, in a very different type of job than they'd normally see on an average day.
So would you say that the takeaway from all your efforts is to basically embrace the same things that you have as far as technology?
I think the tools that I have to manage my diabetes, if it's my insulin, if it's my continuous glucose monitor, if it's my support system, my team, so to speak, my wife, my friends, my family, the people that really understand the challenges I face and also are there to help support me through my successes as well. I think the real takeaway is that with the right tools and the right team, you can still overcome that challenge successfully. And, for example, at the moment, I'm training, staying fit to hold on to that race car and riding my bike on an indoor trainer out in the garage. And my continuous glucose monitor will send alerts to my wife. And even if she's in the house wrangling our kids and gets an alert, she can send me a text to make sure that I'm okay, or make sure that I'm able to get some glucose or whatever that is. And I think that connectivity and that data is a real important part of my management.
Where can we get some more information about the Race with Insulin program online?
Well, the best website is racewithinsulin.com, and people can keep up to speed with me. Again, I apologize for the puns.
No problem.
On Twitter at racewithinsulin, and my personal website, charliekimball.com. And then Novo Nordisk is novonordisk.us as well.
Great. Charlie, appreciate you coming on this morning. It's been a pleasure, man. Keep on doing what you do, man. Great.
I appreciate that, Neil. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Charlie Kimball. Audio copies of this conversation are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au.